then there shall be a war. Hello. 2 chapters today as we're coming into the climax of not just Deathly Hallows, but the entire series. Those chapters would be the sacking of Severus Snape and the Battle of Hogwarts. The point where we see all-out war. Not just small groups, not just certain individuals. It is a siege. And both sides are playing for keeps. Yet, in the face of all of this, alongside the battles and the fighting, confessions are necessary. All of these people need to be able to speak their hearts, because it is very possibly the last time that they could do it. And that's what we see from almost every bit. Okay, so we have the Carrow siblings, and Harry's effective ability to use the Cruciatus Curse, which is not done in the face of the death of his godfather or the threat to any of his friends and peers, but from, I'm not even going to try the Carrows' names, but from McGonagall getting spat at. And I think that says something about Harry. And I think what it says is that we are seeing a parental figure that we had not considered maybe as much before. Because you can always point to someone like Molly and say, well, that was his maternal figure. And then you can find a lot of paternal ones. Arthur's there, Sirius is there, Remus is there, Dumbledore is there. Hagrid, I think you could also point to, particularly with what's coming. But maternal figures, for Harry in particular, we really just seem to have Molly. And then this anger he feels at the disrespect to McGonagall says that her lead in a lot of things meant a lot to him, and that he couldn't let that drop. Like, McGonagall herself says that it was foolish to sort of reveal himself and attack the Carrows. But he couldn't have somebody disrespecting her. And in true parental fashion, she of course says something like, well, I've handled people like that before. But she doesn't keep telling him off. She sort of lets it go. Because part of her is probably seeing both his parents in that moment. Part of her is probably seeing all the students that she has lost in the previous wars. And wanting to be there for all of them. And now she finally can, and that's sort of her pick up and go from that point is, okay, like in the face of Voldemort coming down on them, it is, okay, let's do this. And you could see her Gryffindor spirit in that moment. And that face-off with Snape is sort of this moment of pick your side, which for Gryffindors you have to admit tends to be the tendency. Gryffindors tend to see it as you're either on our side or you're not. And Slytherins, a lot of times, that is not the perspective that they take, nor do I think they're allowed to take. So to sort of address that, I'm going to set that aside. I want to address all the Slytherins, including Snape, when we reach that point. But we have the other heads of house coming in when Professor McGonagall is working against Snape, and Flitwick coming in. You'll do no more murder at Hogwarts is just because of the entire series. I think Snape and Dumbledore, as the professors, have gotten the most said about them, with a smattering of all the BA professors, because they're always rotating through. But the core professors, a lot of times, are just, they've been figures that are there, and suddenly they're coming into this moment where their home and their children are being threatened. And suddenly you realize that they're much more fully than anybody else. And I sort of found it interesting because we have a moment with really each of them as they're talking where you can see their house present in that moment. So McGonagall's just informed them, like, Voldemort is coming, we need to defend the castle, so that Harry can search it. We need to put in every protection of which we are capable while Potter does what he needs to do. You realize, of course, that nothing we do will be able to keep out you-know-who indefinitely, squeaked Flitwick. Very Ravenclaw response to that. Like, you realize that it's gonna get to ground-to-ground fighting really quickly if Voldemort himself is coming. And then, but we can hold him up, said Professor Sprout. And that's the Hufflepuff courage that I think a lot of times we as readers, and along sort of following the character's tendency to do this, to write Hufflepuffs off, we forget that, like, it is the Hufflepuffs just as much as the Gryffindors who have a reason to fight here. Like, the student that we have lost at this point in time was a Hufflepuff. It was Cedric Diggory. And these are hardworking and loyal people. Like, those are the two key personality types of Hufflepuff. So they have an immense courage that I think can rival the Gryffindors to get down and dirty for what they need. Which is, okay, we need to buy Harry time. Okay. Like, again, it's a full recognition that this is not going to work indefinitely, and that a lot of us are going to die. Okay. This needs to be what's done for people to survive this war and this war to end. Okay. Let's do it. And that's it. Like, it really is, let's do it. Because she's not talking about it a lot more. Because Professor McGonagall thanks her. And then says to bring all the students to the Great Hall so that we can get most of them evacuated. And then what we see again of Sprout is, agreed, said Professor Sprout, already hurrying towards the door. I shall meet you in the Great Hall in 20 minutes with my house. And as she jogged out of sight, they could hear her muttering, Tentacula, Devil Snare, and Snuffleupagus pods. Yes, I'd like to see the Death Eaters fighting those. Like, she's just, okay. We need to do it, let's go. And she's already clicking through, like, she is at work in that moment. And a lot of the professors, I feel, sort of take heart in this, because immediately after work, Flitwick goes, I can work from here, and automatically turns, like, it's no longer a question of, you realize he's eventually going to get in. It's, we're fighting anyways. And he turns to the window, and he starts to work, because that's what needs to get done. And then we do eventually hear from Slughorn going through. And he says, my word, what a to-do. I'm not all that sure whether this is wise, Minerva. He's bound to find a way in, you know, and anyone who has tried to delay him will be in the most grievous peril. Which again, I think with the Slytherins we tend to write off as, you just don't want to do this. No, he's being very logical and very practical, which is to say, this is going to get a lot of people hurt. Like, you are aware this is going to get a lot of people hurt. And he's sort of... And he's surprised with Minerva's answer, because Minerva says, "If you wish to leave with your students, we shall not stop you, but if any of you attempt to sabotage our resistance, or take up arms against us within this castle, then Horace, we do to kill." Because, again, the Gryffindors tend to see, you're either with us or against us. So we need to go now. And further down, the time has come for Slytherin House to decide upon its loyalties. Go and wake up your students' wars. And what she is failing to see, I think, that Horace and Snape and a lot of the other Slytherins are seeing, is you are asking them to then fight against their families. Like, you are asking them to fight against their parents and their aunts and uncles and older siblings. And that's a hard thing to be asked for anybody. Like, and I've seen a lot of people speculate on this, and the one that really hit me was, could you imagine fighting somebody alongside your students and recognizing their shoes? So I think the best thing we can do now is to take a look at all the Slytherins and how they're emptying their hearts in this moment. Because they are being asked to pick sides in a battle where they know people intimately on both sides. Which is deeply an unfair thing to be asked. But everybody else is sort of seeing it as a necessity now. Like, we're going to die in this. So we need you, or we need to at least know on whose side you're on. Again, which is a hard thing to grapple with, because whose side then do you pick in that case? And I think a lot of the Slytherins pick neutrality, which is not something that oftentimes I think we consider, but I think it's definitely something we should consider, because it is a position, even in wars. You have the power and ability to be neutral. Switzerland, for example, is one of the big neutral territories that we know. But if you get bullied too easily, then sometimes neutrality is not an option. But I think it's made an option here for the Slytherins, which is to go. It is to take care of the little kids and get everybody out. And that's the choice most of them go with, because you'll notice that it really is only Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle that do sort of turn on them and come back in. You're not getting accounts of the Slytherins just suddenly flooding in and, like, attacking the students. They are making the choice to leave. And this is really interesting because I think it is the best choice for them. Because on one side we're asking them to fight against their own parents or their own peers. But on the other side, that's also a question I don't think they want to ask themselves. Like, to ask yourself, if I go in on one side or the other, do I really want to know if my own family or my own friends are willing to kill me? I don't think that's a question they want answered. So given the option to leave, to not get involved, and to let it go, is really, I think, the only option that these kids have. Because anything else is going to utterly destroy them on a scale that I don't think a lot of the Gryffindors or the Hufflepuffs are considering. Because again, do you really want to ask that question? But if we take a step back and look at the big picture, I think their choice of neutrality, in all honesty, is a choice of taking Harry's side in removing themselves from the situation so that they're not getting mixed into it. Because I could see Harry's side being a lot more forgiving. Again, if you explained it out of, like, literally, they were my parents. How could you ask me to fight that? I think Harry's side would be a lot more forgiving than Voldemort. Voldemort in this case is not seeing neutrality as an option. He definitely is seeing either you join my side or I will just kill you. Like, there is no option of sitting it out. Because when it comes back around, like, if he wins this, and he finds out that the students left rather than joining his side or trying to capture Potter, like Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle do, no, those kids are done. So by making the choice to leave, to say, I'm not going to have all these other students wondering if they should be cursing me or not, I'm going to leave. I really think that that choice, especially if they are taking care of all those younger years, I think that choice says a lot about these kids. Which is, you're saying I can go. He's saying I should kill my own peers. I'm gonna go, and in doing that, I choose you. Which is just heart-wrenching, because if you don't sort of look at it from their perspective, you're not going to see that confession on their part. You're going to see a betrayal. Particularly like you do maybe with Pansy and with Crabbe and Goyle. Like, they make that choice to betray their own school, while the other Slytherins say, okay, and we're gonna go. Horace, I'd like to add, is still here. And I mean, the confessions after that point keep coming. You have Percy coming back in and being entirely apologetic and willing to admit that he was wrong on so many levels. And being able to explain why it took so long, aka I could have gotten killed, but to fight to get back to his family. And be willing to try again in a fight, in a war where he could die, to stand with his family one last time. That's what Ginny wants too, and we see it with Tonks as well when she comes back in. Is this moment of, I can't just walk away from my husband. Just like Ginny's saying, I can't walk away from my family. Like, everybody else here is risking everything. And I can't just walk away from that. And that's sort of the interesting thing then, when you pair sort of Percy and Ginny and Tonks with Draco. Which is him coming in sort of in this attempt of trying to take care of his own family as well, which is to get them back on the better side of Voldemort, and his mother willing to give her wand to him, which I would like to point out now means that both the Malfoy parents are without a wand. Like, Lucius's wand was broken when Voldemort used it, and Narcissa's wand is now being used by Draco. So both of them are now wandless in the middle of a war. And oddly enough, Draco then tries to keep control of the situation when Crabbe and Goyle go power hungry. Like, he's trying to get them to stop destroying things and to calm down and to think rationally, and it's not working. And you can sort of see that, again, Draco has his doubts now. Like, he's seen the worst side of things, and he's sort of like, I don't want to keep doing this. Like, he's been the witness to death before, and a very big tool in the death of Dumbledore. And so he's sort of looking at Crabbe and Goyle going, what has gotten into you? Like, we don't want this. We don't want this at all. So it's sort of interesting because we are seeing that turn for Draco, and his own confession in a way of I don't want this. This isn't what I want. And we also see Harry's acceptance of that when Harry specifically goes back for Draco and Crabbe. Goyle. Goes back for Draco and Goyle. Which is his own confession as well, which he does say specifically as he's watching everything burn and realizes that Crabbe is likely dead, is he doesn't want this either. And we're seeing Draco and Harry connected in that moment of, this isn't how this was supposed to be. We were supposed to be kids. Maybe in some other life we could have been friends, but really we were just supposed to be academic rivals, not trying to kill each other. So they have this connecting moment of opening their hearts to each other when it's just fire and death around them, and saying, I'd pick life. If I can help you keep your life, then I will do that. Obviously, of course, the Grey Lady is the most direct confession that we're sort of seeing, where she has to explain some very deep secrets about herself, including the fact that she was hoodwinked by Tom Riddle, which I think had to be, again, just heart-wrenching for her to admit. Same with Slughorn. These were people that you liked and trusted. This was a person that you thought could do great things, and you didn't realize he was going to be so terrible. You were just trying to connect with somebody, and had that thrown back in your face. And to let that out, that's hard. Because that's saying, I read somebody wrong, and people have died because of it. And I think that's got to be one of my favorite moments of someone emptying their heart, which is Harry letting go of really all resentment for all these people. Because he always had these moments throughout the series where Harry was looking at somebody like, you stupid, why couldn't you just do this, or why couldn't you just do this, or why couldn't you realize he was a bad person? And he lets it go here, because he tells the Grey Lady, like, you weren't the only one that he tricked. Everybody is capable of making these mistakes and reading people wrong. And we can't hold that grudge. And I think that's his recognition that allows him then to make the decision to save Draco, to make the decision that this is not what he wanted, is him speaking to the Grey Lady and realizing we read people wrong. But how long are we going to keep punishing ourselves before we forgive ourselves and we keep going? And that's sort of what this is keeping going in the face of total destruction. And letting other people see your hearts at the same time. Because that's got to be the hardest part, right? You're facing down death. And to be able to connect to somebody even in that moment. Even in that moment when you probably would rather be screaming in terror. You're instead connecting to people. Maybe it just gives you a little more will to live. And to fight for life. but not everybody's gonna live. I sort of hope that I'm like Fred. I know that you cannot choose when you meet death. But I want to be like the third brother. I want to be like Fred. I want to be like Sirius. I don't want to die screaming. I want to die laughing and greet death as an old friend. We're almost there. It's a little frightening. I think I've got 3 more videos to go. Let's keep going then. I'm gonna keep reading, and I hope you do too. See you next time.